I'd like everyone to close their eyes and visualize with me for a moment. Now, take yourself back to a class in which you struggled learning the content. No matter how your teacher tried to help you, you couldn't fully grasp their criteria. Your fellow students were being distracting, which led you to not focusing, and because you couldn't focus, you left the class feeling unaccomplished and defeated. Now imagine you're in the comfort of your home learning that same subject. This time you have a mentor like your parent or a sibling there to help you when you need. When you start to struggle, they know your learning styles and they're able to guide you and help you understand your assignment. You finish your schoolwork feeling like you haven't fully grasped it, but you're more confident in what you know and what you learned. You may open your eyes now. These two scenarios are similar to what I experienced when I went to public school compared to when I transferred into homeschooling. According to Martin Worcester, the author of the article The Virtue of Learning at Home, in the 90s, Stanford accepted 27% of homeschoolers who applied, a rate twice as high as public school graduates. Colleges often accept and want homeschool students because they're typically more independent and they have a higher thirst and drive for knowledge and learning. This is often because homeschool students have learned in encouraging environments, whereas public school students often dread school and they have a negative connotation with learning. The visualization exercise I had you do exhibited these different learning environments. Today I'll be talking about homeschooling, its misconceptions, its benefits beyond it, and how it is a more comfortable learning environment for the parent or parents and child or children. By the end, you'll be more knowledgeable about homeschooling and able to support the transition to homeschooling for yourself or others. When people first hear the word homeschooling, they often have a lot of misjudgments about it. The most common assumption is that homeschoolers are not socialized and they don't have any friends, when in fact these kids often are involved in one or multiple social groups that are to include and are not limited to co-ops, Cub Scouts or Girl Scouts, 4-H, and church groups or events. Another common assumption is that as a parent, you have to be trained to be an expert in whatever your child is learning in order to teach your child, when in reality there are many widely available resources that don't require a parent to know or be an expert in what their kid is learning. For example, Khan Academy and paid subscriptions teach your child independently with videos and practice quizzes and tests, which is all graded within its system. A hybrid type approach can be taken using curriculum books or access to public learning institutions like libraries and museums. The hybrid method requires more parent involvement, but they don't have to be an expert and know exactly what their child is learning. Finally, a lot wonder and doubt that homeschool kids meet the basic education requirements, when, according to Worcester, the average homeschooler has a combined SAT score 67 points higher than the national average, which shows that homeschool students know what they're supposed to know and sometimes even more. Homeschooling can benefit children and their family beyond the time that they're learning. How, you may ask? Well, as you can see here, homeschooled students are more likely to visit public learning facilities like a library, museum, or a zoo or aquarium. This is likely because they view them as fun and interesting, whereas public school students may not because they don't want to learn on their time off or simply because they find it boring. This relates back to the different learning environments that they encounter. This interest in learning in a fun way can often carry into adulthood within homeschoolers. Here in the second graph, we can see that homeschool students participate in more family activities. Homeschooling usually brings families closer together, which results in kids being more willing to participate in family activities like sports and board games and arts and crafts. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, my public school experience wasn't that bad, or my kid doesn't come home and explain or tell me about anything bad that happened at school. To that I ask, are you confident that you know what happens at your child's school? Do you trust that they tell you everything, the good and the bad? Sometimes you have no idea or control over what happens to your child or children during their typical school day. Your child may get bullied or harassed while at school. They may not tell anyone because they don't think anything will be done about it, or they may be scared or embarrassed to talk about it. You also have no control over what a teacher teaches or how they treat your child. They may push their ideals and values like politics and religion, and punish or treat your child differently if they have different ones. Another big concern is that fellow students can negatively influence your child. Maybe their friend vapes or they do drugs and they convince your kid to join in. They may also participate in bullying other students if they're not aware of it or their friends are doing it so they think it's okay. So, who here is ready to pull their kid out of public education? Well, who here is at least open to continuing to learn more about homeschooling? Thank you.